And there we go, we are live for the Paul Ricard qualifying session. And I'm joined today by Pedro.
Hello.
Hello. And Roses.
Hola.
Hola, indeed. I think we're in for an interesting one here. It's been a very hot week for Europe in general. The heat has subsided a little bit. It's still 32, 33 degrees in France around Paul Ricard. So we are into some potential interesting situations with tyre strategies and whatnot. But this is qualifying, so it's going to be flat out.
Indeed.
See if the tyres survive for one flying lap.
Yeah.
And hello to Mandy Moo, who's already there. Hello, sweetie.
Mandy, hello.
Greetings.
So, gents, we'll go alphabetically in this one. Any thoughts on qualifying before it starts, Pedro? Put you on the spot straight away.
Well, just going to be the usual suspects at the front, or actually not signs.
Yeah.
Well, Williams impress in FP3. Like, you know what practice sessions aren't really representative, but can be a good indicator if they can have that sort of speed. Yeah, just hoping for a good race. Sorry, just people getting some good qualifyings for the race. We see the man on the screen, Pierre Gasly. Just he did quite well in practice sessions.
He's in need of a good performance this weekend, isn't he?
Yeah, and what better way to do it than at his home ground? That would be nice. I think it would really boost his confidence for the second half of the season. And yeah, other than that, let me be honest, I haven't really watched all free practice sessions, so I don't exactly know who did well and who didn't. But yeah, just hoping for a good, clean session.
Well, being honest, me and Roses had this conversation just before you joined. We haven't watched the free practice either, so we are going in a little bit blind. The only thing we know is Magnussen and Sainz are taking penalties for new engine parts.
Yes.
Otherwise, as we see it, is how we're learning it. So, moving on, Roses. What do you think? What are you either hoping for? What do you predict with qualifying?
The usual, like always, Verstappen, Checo, Leclerc. But I reckon where Magnussen is taking this penalty, I think he's going to massively help with getting a good starting position for Mick, and hopefully he can have a good start for tomorrow. And then the usual places for the Aston Martins, Williams, and the Mercs.
That's fair. I think we're predicting the same sort of normal knockouts for this track, aren't we? Probably at least one or two of the Williams, probably the Aston Martins, and I don't know. If I go with those two teams, I'm going to say either Tsunoda, Gasly, or Ricciardo is going to get knocked out in Q1. And those are at least two names I'm quite disappointed with this season. Gasly and Ricciardo. But every Grand Prix is an opportunity. Every qualifying session is a chance to have a good Grand Prix, so we'll see. That's weird. I didn't realise they were allowed 8 exhausts throughout the year. That's an interesting graphic.
Didn't know that as well. That you had a limited.
Interesting. You can see Sainz's engine components already on the maximum.
I mean, that would be quite a good one to replace as well, the exhaust, because that would give them some extra power, like less carbon deposit.
Yeah, absolutely. And at very least, a little bit more potential reliability. It's something Ferrari's been severely lacking with this year. I mean, it started out in the first race that we all thought Red Bull were going to be there, have their Achilles heel with reliability, but it sort of swung the other way now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cost a lot of points to Ferrari and Ferrari powered teams this season.
Absolutely.
But still, we're only halfway through the season, I think.
Yeah. Exactly halfway.
Yeah, so it could completely go the opposite way back to Red Bull or even it out.
It's entirely possible. It is entirely possible. The engines are being homologated at, I think it's the end of July. Don't quote me. However, they are still allowed to work on the reliability side of the engines. So this time next year, I'll be surprised we see anywhere near the same amount of failures, but this is Formula One. Anything can happen.
Exactly.
What do you guys think of this track? I did a few laps on it to remind myself of it on the F1 2021 game this morning. No, not this morning, last night. I know what I meant. And I find it hard to be passionate about this course.
It's
say so as well.
difficult. It's not a very fun track. It more favours the top team with the best reliability on the engine.
Yeah. And those that can be ultra precise on the braking and turning.
Yeah. It's just a bit of a weird layout as well. Like, it's a bit weird sometimes. There are sections where you have just really sequences of really slow speed corners, and then just others like just high speed corners. Like it's I don't know.
The nickname that I call it for myself is drag strip. And then whoever can get the best terminal velocity through the corners will do well, but on that I find it pretty boring.
I get you. Hopefully it's one of those tracks that adheres to better racing than it does flat out qualifying. We'll see. I do think this track is the test for these 2022 spec F1 cars with the aero. If a car can race around here, to me it will show that the rules are working, but we'll see tomorrow.
Yeah, because that's usually the issue around here, and hopefully, just as you said, like we'll have closer racing, at least. I don't know, like it's a track, definitely not one of my favorites, but it's not that I necessarily dislike it either. I'm not really sure what to think about this one.
I saw a few quotes yesterday, and it was a load of the drivers being asked what they thought of Paul Ricard. I mean, this is from about 2017, 2018. And most of them went, why do we want to go there? We've got Manicourt. So that says a lot to me.
Yeah. Yeah, like, it was a good track. But, like, do you reckon that it would do well with the current generation of cars if we change tracks to there? For French GP?
That's always the question, isn't it? I don't think we'd know until they put a couple of cars around there.
Yeah.
But then the other question is, does Magcor have the licenses to be Cat 1? Because that's what it needs to be, is the Cat 1 track for these cars.
Yeah. Well, that I can answer with probably a Google.
I mean, they used to have, because it wasn't too long ago that they hosted it, wasn't it?
I know GT3 cars go around there, but so I think Cat 2 is the current licensing they have.
Manicourt is still an FIA Grade 1.
Oh.
Wow.
So they can.
according to Google, but that's only on 5-second Googling.
Well,
I think for the fans though, this track looks weird because there's just so many. There are so many layouts, so many blue and white. I mean, it's obviously based around the French flag or the AstroTurf and all that. I mean, it is varied, but it's looking at it, my eyes get lost. It's like which bit of the track they're supposed to be on.
It's more comes down to the chicane that confuses people on the straight, and then everything else.
Yeah, it really does.
I think that Alonso meme you sent the other day just really sums up the experience around this track.
Yeah, you see why I said that, don't you? Yeah. For those that don't know, I'll see if I can find it and put it on the stream. You have to bear me a moment on that. So my question for this qualifying is: are we going to see Mercedes challenging the other two teams?
They could possibly challenge them, as their reliability seems a lot higher than Red Bull and Ferrari. If they play their cards right, then I believe they'd be able to get a podium, possibly a win.
Entirely possible.
Just surprised to see. I know it's only been like the first set of laps, but I'm surprised to see Lando ahead of both Mercs.
That is
Like
true.
considerable margin.
Yeah, 4 tenths clear. I mean, that is a big gap from them. For the Mercs and Ferrari particularly, 1.3.
Yeah.
That doesn't bode well for our theory of a potential Mercedes win this weekend.
Well, do you reckon that the Alpine could pull off something interesting here?
Now that I've just seen Alonso's lap go 5th, yeah, maybe.
Oof.
Where's Ocon? Where's Ocon come out?
Ninth.
Right behind the Mercedes. 6 tenths behind Alonso.
I mean, I think Alonso got some slipstream from one of the Red Bulls. The main straight. Not the main straight, the back straight.
Not 6 tenths though.
Yeah, still.
Is Alonso starting to bury Ocon a little bit? I mean, I know the points don't say that, but Alonso's had so much poor reliability and bad luck with safety cars. I mean, it's a bit like Russell being in front of Hamilton. We all know Hamilton, for the majority, just over majority, has been ahead of Russell. But Russell was goal hung until there's been a safety car and ends up in front of Hamilton every time. I mean, you make your own luck in this sport, but Alonso and Hamilton particularly have had such bad luck with safety cars and this year, and Alonso with reliability on top of that. I just wonder, is he starting to bury Ocon? I mean, if he qualifies anywhere near half a second ahead of Ocon today, and I'm worried about Ocon's future.
Let me say, I think Alonso, it's a bit like when he came back last season. Like, he had a bit of a slow start, but at some point he just picked it up, and Ocon was nowhere near him.
Yeah.
So maybe let's start like shifting their momentum, perhaps. But as you said as well, like the fact that Ocon is currently ahead of Alonso in the standings doesn't really reflect how good Alonso has been this season. Sometimes Ocon gets the edge on quali, but on the race, yeah, I just think the results aren't really doing Alonso justice.
Yeah, I get that. Okay, so at the moment, Oh, we got Magnussen who just won't be going out, will he? That's
I don't
interesting.
think so. Neither him nor Sainz.
I think that Sainz on track now.
Oh yeah, he is.
If he's only getting a 10 place penalty, he could
Okay.
start at best 11th, so he could still be a factor.
Exactly. 32 is third right now.
Interesting.
Okay. Yeah, let's say like starting the 13th for them, it's probably better than starting right from the back.
Yeah. But
I believe Magnussen won't come out this whole session just to save the engine.
Oh no, wait. Like it doesn't matter. Like they're both going to start towards the back of the grid because of the amount of accumulated penalties they have. Because they're going to change 4 components. So being like this just means that Sainz is going to start 19th instead of 20th.
How do the penalties work now? I mean, when we had the McLaren Honda days, it was 5 place penalties for each component change. Should be MGU, MGUK, ICE, electron, all that.
Yep.
And the
control electronic is 10, I think. No,
oh, right.
I think some components are worth like different amounts of penalties. Yeah.
Well, the running meme for McLaren and Honda was they had so many grid place penalties they were starting in the last Grand Prix. I mean, at one point, Alonso, I think he had a 40 or 50 place grid penalty because they changed the entire engine. Went, sod it, we'll have a new one. Are they still consecutive? I mean, if you get, say, change a turbo and an ICE, do they add together, or do they just go, we'll give you the 10 place and be done with it? That's my question.
I mean, they just add them all up together, really.
That being the case, yeah, to start 19th and 20th.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys. I'm actually finding the rules this year a little bit harder to follow. I mean, they've changed things subtly, particularly on the budget. Well, there is the budget. There's the budget, reliability, components, and grid penalties. I'm finding it harder to follow this year than previous. And I think it's because they've tweaked a load of rules. They've not necessarily put a whole new rule set in, but it's just slightly different everywhere. So
yeah, I agree.
And for the average viewer, I think that is a bit tricky to follow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Paul the rest is currently talking about W Series. Did either of you guys see the race outcome?
No, I didn't.
Jamie Chadwick won her 5th in a row for this season, and 7 in a row going back to last season.
Not really surprised.
I know. I mean, that's dominance.
She's just really good.
I did hear a detail saying that if she wins Formula W again, she will not get any extra FIA points.
Yeah. I don't really understand why, but yeah, she's not gonna get any points.
Which is mad. I mean, how she hasn't got a full F3 or F2 drive is beyond me.
Did get an F2 drive.
Yeah. I mean,
she's winning like by over like, what was it, 30 seconds each race, didn't it?
Well, today it was only 2, but she qualified 4th and had to pass a load of people to get there. But some races she was 20, 30 seconds ahead, yeah. So, dominant.
Yeah, give her a spot in F2 and I believe she'll do pretty alright in there.
Show her quality.
I think just the issue with her she doesn't have the funding to get the F2 seat, but like she's definitely showing that she has the quality, she has the talent.
I mean, if she probably gets into like GT racing to try and get a sponsor through there, and then after a while try and come back to Formula racing.
We'll see. Right, gents. 1 minute to go. Who is getting knocked out in... Ooh, Q1. Joe a bit Larry going through that corner.
I reckon it's staying the same as it is.
Magnussen, Vettel, Latifi, Schumacher and Joe.
Probably.
Yeah.
I could see that. I could see that.
I'm probably going to go on board. Like, just watch mix lap.
Ooh, Albon's going backwards.
Spin.
Oh no.
Well, he's still in into Q2 at the moment by a tenth or two.
Just reminding the viewers, in case they don't know, like those colored strips in the outside of the track are not only there for aesthetic reasons, they're also as well to help the cars slow down in case they go off track. So the blue ones just help the cars slow down a bit, as the red ones just slow them massively. Have rough surfaces there to help the car slow down.
The high retardation strips, basically, aren't they?
Yes. Yeah.
Which is great for slowing down, but it will also shred their tyres if they go over them repeatedly. Particularly if they're locked up.
Yeah.
It's equivalent of a different grade to sandpaper, isn't it?
Yeah. That would be a good analogy.
Great for grip, really bad for tyre longevity.
Yeah. You wouldn't want to go off many times. Ooh.
Oh, here comes Stroll and Schumacher.
Mick.
Will Stroll make it through to Q2?
No.
Nope.
Schumacher.
Mick, let's go. P10.
Oh, yes, he's through at the moment.
P10.
Look like a nice lap. Oh, Gasly.
Vettel up into Q2. Albon's knocked out. Gasly again. Ricardo.
Magnussen P6. Why did he?
What?
Why did he go out?
I think he went right at the end.
Didn't even see him get on track.
He's like, yeah, here you go, Ricardo. Thought you'd make it through to Q2 once. Nope.
Nope. Not this week. Ricardo's stock is falling so fast, isn't it?
Yeah.
No.
Just really ashamed to see him in this position, but then again, like, oh wait, someone.
Schumacher's time got deleted.
Oh.
Oh,
So
I missed that then.
Yeah, no, they were literally just saying it then. So, Mick's sign was deleted, which puts him at the back with Magnussen and Sainz. And Stroll's complaining about traffic in the last sector. Yeah, okay.
No, you're just terrible.
Yeah. But that does put Ricardo back through and Albon back through into Q2. Woo! Excuse me. But, so, knockout, Latifi, shocker. Mick due to a track limits infringement. Joe, Stroll, and again Gasly.
Damn.
And he was someone last year who was at very least best. Yeah, he was ruling the midfield.
Really outperforming that AlphaTauri. Let's say, like, they've had a bit of a downgrade compared to last season in terms of performance.
Yeah.
No, he's really struggling with that car at the moment.
And imagine getting out qualified by your teammate driver that can't see over the steering wheel.
He's great aerodynamically.
Yeah.
Indeed, he's also probably lighter as well.
Have you ever seen the size of Alonso compared to Russell?
Yeah.
It's like...
Russell is just a giant.
Well, how tall is Russell?
I think he's...
I know in centimeters, but I'm not sure how much he's...
Well, I think it's like 6'3".
Yeah, I think so. He's 185 centimeters. Alonso is like probably 10 centimeters shorter than him, I think.
Just having a look. I'm just trying to see what it is in feet and inches, because that's how we work in the UK. You were dead right. It's 185 for centimeters, but that means well, that means nothing to me. He's 6'1", 6'1".
Yeah, I think him, Albon, and Ocon are the tallest. Then, like, most drivers just sit in like the 5 foot, not sure, 9, 10. Don't really know how to do the conversion, but probably around that set of heights.
If you set half a foot is basically 15 centimeters. So, and there's 12 inches in a foot. So, somewhere around 160 centimeters to 170, I'd say, is about average. So yeah, Russell is massively over height.
Yeah, and then you just have Yuki at his 5'3", maybe.
Let's have a look. Let's have a look. 159.
Yeah. Like 5'2", 5'3", isn't he?
Just have a look.
Yeah, Yuki's 5'3".
Yeah, 5'3". So he's like the perfect F1 driver, like Diddy. He's 10 inches shorter than Russell.
Jeez.
Out of curiosity, I want to see Alonso. So it was just funny seeing Alonso. He's 171.
Yeah.
5'7".
Okay.
5'7". So that's a little bit under average height for people in the UK, but it's great for an F1 driver. And speaking of, there he is on camera.
In meters, Albon's 0.1 taller than Russell.
Is he?
He's 186, I think.
Yeah.
It's about half an inch.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't realise it was so tall. I mean, I remember when we had, you guys won't remember, but there was a guy called Justin Wilson who was killed in IndyCar probably about 10 years ago now. He was 6 foot, and he was regarded as too tall. And if you do see some of the taller drivers, they are literally, the head is poking out the top and almost into the airbox.
Yeah.
And I couldn't be an F1 driver. I couldn't fit in the cockpit at all.
Like, I just seen like mixed footage, and it was so close. Like, you guys should be able to see it now.
I think they're showing it on track.
Yeah. Just look at that. Like, it's just a little bit over. Oh,
a couple of millimeters.
Yeah, that's track limits.
But where they've got that bollard, I would have said that was track limit. It's neither here nor there. Track limits are track limits.
Yeah.
I still think we should go back to make the curbs as wide as the car. Anything further than that, you can use a curb as much as you want.
As you want.
If you don't want the cars to go that far on the curbs, move the curbs into the track a little bit, so that the curb defines the track limit. Any further on that pressure sensor, if a car touches that pressure sensor, they're out.
Yeah, that would be more reasonable, I think.
Yeah. Little simple pressure sensor, bing, up, you're out. It's simple, isn't it?
Yeah. I think it would be feasible.
Yeah, but then that's like, if it's a right-hander, then the inside of the right wheels can touch it, and then that'll ping it. They've got to be really precise with it.
Absolutely. In athletics, thinking of like the long jump or the triple jump, they have a little. It's not a rubber. It's a rubber mat. So there's a pressure sensor in it, and there's a plasticine filler.
Yeah.
If there is a mark on that, so the athletes can put the foot on it. If there's any pressure on it, it will leave an indentation and set off the pressure sensor. If those two are triggered, it's out. I know you can't do the certain things, but yeah, obviously there's the ways to do it, but a very simple pressure sensor, which takes, say, 5 kilo to trigger it. So air won't trigger it. So you physically have to press it down, out. The only problem is that there would probably be a lot of circuit modification to do this sort of stuff.
Well, it wouldn't have to even be that. It could be like a little sensor on the car, even not even like a pressure sensor. Be a sensor underneath the car, and they somehow code it with the track of limits. And then if that sensor goes over the track limits,
yeah, you can have it across in the center line of the car. If that center line goes over the defined center line point, there's a number of ways to do it.
That would be cool, especially because of like all the cameras that the cars have. So it would be easier to monitor it as well. Like just implement that system. That would be interesting.
Well, otherwise, we are left with this sort of VAR thing which did not work in Austria. So Perez got disqualified from Q2 in Q3.
Right, just the track limits around Austria. Like someone needs to review them because it's just like it's not rewarding for drivers. They can't really push as much as they could, perhaps. I know they're always at a risk of like if it sticks, it sticks. Like they managed to get the line dead right, but I mean, it's not really encouraging drivers to really push these cars to the limits.
The other factor is all of the drivers were complaining, and I would tend to believe them on this. I mean, we heard it from Norris and Hamilton, and said, no, that was in. That was clearly in. I can't see where I went out. And you could hear it in their voice. They weren't playing it up for TV. They genuinely thought they were in. They can't see the tyres in the car. They can't see the white lines.
Yeah, I've seen that. I think it was Albert Fabregat, the Spanish journalist. He does a lot of tech talks and all that. And I think he actually did a test with Piastri. So they took a cockpit from like one of Alpine's cars, and they were doing a test like on which he put like different objects at a certain distance from the car, and then in this case Piastri would have to tell him when he started or couldn't see those objects, just so that we could have like some sort of sense on like sort of the perspective that the drivers get from where they are in the car. And like it really wasn't easy to spot that, and they weren't even moving. So imagine doing that at high speed.
120 miles an hour, through Austria, the right-hand turn,
How hard it must be, like, to spot these little things.
Ooh, Magnussen locking up to the final corner. Yeah, visibility is a big issue in these cars. I have heard that the 2026 working group for the new set of rules, which is going to be coming for the new engine, they're going to be looking at making the cars lighter, smaller, and increasing visibility. So I'm fairly happy with this rule set as it is. I mean, any improvement on that is going to be good, but visibility is a concern. I'll say I'm fairly happy. I'm happy overall, but there is concerns there. Right, so eliminations as it stands at the moment. Sainz is on the lap. He's going out again, but Sainz hasn't set a lap, but that leaves Tsunoda, Albon, Ocon, and Russell. We'll say Vettel as well, who's on the bubble, as potential eliminations. So
yeah, but Danny could be one. He may be sitting in 6th at the moment. but Russell can improve.
And Danny
and all
is
the others.
and Danny is again 4/10 behind Norris.
Yeah. Okay, Mag is up there as well. Went for another lap.
If I were the Haas boys, I'd just be out there having fun. I mean, they haven't got anything on the line for Haas, so they just want to go out and get good results. Maybe pick up a few
Yeah.
new sponsors, have a bit of fun, prove that last year's car was a blip, and just try and pick up some good advertising.
Yeah, like they can really go for a bit of a different strategy tomorrow, since like where they are currently, they just, as you said, like they have nothing to lose.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah, it's something different.
But do we think any car can challenge the Ferraris or the Red Bull?
Not yet, I think. Like, maybe Mercedes in the future, but like, then again, at the moment, I just don't see. But I think there were talks for regulation change regarding the floors, or like the diffuser height, and that could possibly affect teams like Ferrari and Red Bull themselves. So
It is worth mentioning that there's
no.
been a lot of noise regarding the flexibility of the floors in the last few races. That was due to come in here. It hasn't. It's not coming in until Spa.
Okay.
So the potential advantage Ferrari and Red Bull have with flexing floors at high speed in a non-linear form is still potentially happening. Allegedly.
Sainz is 9/10 ahead of Verstappen.
How did he manage that?
I'm sorry, what?
He was on fresh softs as well.
And skipped chicane, apparently. Alright, so in reverse alphabetical order this time. So, Roses, you're up. Who's getting eliminated in this one?
I'm going to say, sticking with how it is now, Tsunoda, Albon, Ocon, Vettel, and I think Bottas.
I could see that. I could see that. Any of those particular shock for you, or just kind of what the natural way is?
Natural way is really. Danny may be having a better day, possibly. I have to wait until the final minute left to see if anyone improves.
That's fair. That's fair. Pedro, thoughts?
Yeah, I could probably agree with all those. Like, I think in Vettel's case, like if he gets eliminated, I think it will be more of a car issue than actually him, because I think he's been doing quite well in the last few races, especially.
He's been unlucky as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, just think that that car is just letting him down, really.
It is.
Not really doing justice as to how good he's been performing lately.
It is worth saying it's a massive improvement from where it was in Saudi, in Australia, and Bahrain.
Oh, definitely.
But it's still lacking.
Yeah.
But it's not god awful anymore. It's not like the Haas of last year.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to disagree with you guys ever so slightly. The bottom three, yeah, I think they're going out. Tsunoda, Albon, Ocon. I think Vettel will squeak in. I hope he'll squeak in. I think we will lose Bottas. But Vettel, it's going to be Vettel or Ricciardo to me.
Maybe.
So we'll see. We'll see. Russell's fast enough to get into Q3, but we'll see.
You know what? I'm still a bit surprised that I mean, saying that, it will probably change. Like, I'm still finding it a bit strange that the McLarens are ahead of the Mercs.
Yeah, I have been watching that a little bit carefully, and it's a surprise considering the pace of the McLaren versus the Mercedes this year.
Yeah.
But it is going to come down tomorrow to who this track choose tyres. It's going to come down to that. Who can get through, say, a 1 or a 2 stop race. It's going to probably be a 2 stop race, I would imagine, without having to pit a third time.
I think we have the softest compounds, don't we?
Ooh, that was a mistake.
I always forget the order. So the higher, like, when you do like the C1 to C5, this like it goes from like the C5 are the hardest, and the C1 are the softest, aren't they?
Do you know what? I've lost track. I preferred it when they had the hard, very hard, the medium, the soft, super soft, and hyper soft. I actually knew what was what.
Yeah, because I think that for this weekend they have the C3 to the C1.
We are looking at a hot race tomorrow.
How hot compared to qualifying? Oh, did you guys see that? That car bounces horribly. Sorry.
Come race time, green flag, it will be 35.
Ooh.
Hot enough.
Let me say, F2 drivers were already, some of them were struggling a bit yesterday, and it was like later in the evening, like 28 degrees, I think. I mean, do know that they have different specs, like cars and all that. But, yeah, it's going to be a challenge for the drivers.
Yeah, and it's gonna be really dry as well. Low 20s come green flag for humidity, so it's gonna be really hot and dry.
It's a Sahara gonna dry.
It's like a Singapore race.
Wow.
Sorry, I just checked. Sorry to interrupt. Just the tires. So the higher the number, like from the C1 to C5, the higher the number, the softer the tire. So we actually have the 3 hardest compounds this weekend.
So we've essentially got the medium as the hardest soft tire as the soft tire.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird to think.
I reckon it's going to be like, if it's going to be that hot for tomorrow, I reckon it's going to be like a double or like a double soft, maybe a 3 stop soft, hard.
Quite possibly.
Maybe mediums. Mediums could.
Mediums would be more for like a low fuels, so you don't burn them.
Maybe.
At the moment, we are looking at Albon, Vettel, Hamilton. Hamilton's in the drop zone. That's not particularly good. Okay, so this could be quite interesting. We've had
Ricardo made it through for now.
Hamilton's coming through.
Ooh.
Magnussen up to 7th. Norris is in the pits, so he's not moving anywhere. He's sitting 8th.
Yep, there goes Ricardo.
He thinks he's safe, but I don't think he will be.
Yep. Oh, Ricardo's in the drop zone, as you've said, and he's finished. Vettel's on the lap, Ocon's on the lap, Bottas and Albon. No, Albon's cruising.
That's Ocon.
Oh no,
Ocon is out. He aborted the lap, I think.
So Vettel, he's way off actually, isn't he? Nearly half a second.
You just said, like, him putting the car that far up is already a miracle. I think we can all agree that it's probably the second worst car on the grid at the moment.
Ooh,
No.
third worst car.
Who do you reckon then?
I mean, it's not even the worst car because Norris is doing
Oh,
wow.
you mean McLaren? Oh, I thought Bell.
No, I was talking about the Aston Martin.
Oh yeah. Wasn't listening then.
It's depending on the track. It's sometimes the worst car, sometimes the fourth worst car. It sort of pings around a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It needs to come 26, so that these new engine suppliers come in and see what each team takes.
What do you guys think about the grid expanding? I mean, my personal view is we don't have enough cars on the grid. I want 2 more teams. So my personal preference would be Andretti and something like either the Porsche or Volkswagen Group, whatever they're going to do. I want 2 more teams on the grid. What do you guys think?
I'm just checking. Sorry, just to see. So we can have up to 26 cars on the grid according to the rules. So we can have 3 more teams.
Yeah.
I would like to see Porsche and Audi as a competitor, and could do Andretti.
I think that could be nice, actually. Have a 3-way battle between like 3 German constructors, and Andretti obviously with tradition in other motorsport categories, and obviously the Andretti name just successful bunch of drivers in F1, so that could be interesting.
I think so. I personally like to see Andretti because it's a very successful brand in America with various Formula and Formula E. Michael has F1 experience himself back in the early 90s. Not particularly good F1 experience nonetheless. And yeah, I think it'd be good for sport to have a second American team, one that isn't so reliant on another team like Haas is with Ferrari. But we'll see. And it'd be good to have the Volkswagen, Porsche, Audi, whatever group do their thing. I do think it's criminal we haven't got a German Grand Prix though.
True. Yeah, that's really inconceivable for me. Especially considering the tradition, like German drivers, and especially like considering now that we have Mick with arguably the name of the most successful German driver ever. I think it would make sense.
Yeah, and arguably the most iconic name in motorsport.
True.
I mean, there are some tracks and whatnot I don't think should get a permanent place on the grid. I could argue, and I will, Imola doesn't deserve to be there every year. I would put that in a rotation. We've spoken about this before with other courses. Rotate it on a 2 to 3 sort of scale with maybe Portimao, Mugello, something or other. You could figure something out. And I would definitely have probably Hockenheim and Nürburgring alternate.
Yes, that would be nice.
Yeah. But that's just me.
Just let me say, now that you've touched that point, like, what do you think of the possibility of not having Spa for next year's calendar?
I hate it personally.
Yeah, I think it would ruin the calendar.
What do you think?
Such an iconic, just buy such an iconic track, I like personally it's one of my favorite tracks. Like they've done like safety changes as well, which could possibly play in their favor of being in the on the calendar like for years for the following years. And I've heard that the entry of Kyalami into the calendar could mean that Spa would go, which I really wouldn't want. Like I'd like to see both tracks on the calendar.
Yeah, that's the wrong track to go.
And I think it's France as well, like that is on the verge of possibly not being on the calendar for next season. Like, let me just say, like, if I had to choose between Spa or France to leave the calendar, I'd choose France.
Yeah, hands down. And I do believe there are certain countries that, or tracks, I'm going to say but either or, deserve and need a race. That is a lot of the core European ones where teams are from. Italy, Monza, of course, Britain, Spain, France. Although I would change the Spanish Grand Prix. I mean, I would get rid of Barcelona. That's besides the point.
Yeah.
I would change it to a different track.
Definitely.
Spa. I mean, admittedly, I don't think there's much of a pedigree of racing in Belgium, but that track is just too iconic to say no to.
Exactly. It's been like pretty much a bit in a way like Monaco. Just like when you think of F1, like those two tracks just really come to mind.
Although
I think
I will go back on what I was going to say a little bit. Monaco, I don't think is fit for purpose. I would put that into a rotation system. I mean, I think it should be there, but not every year.
Maybe
2 years on, 1 year off. I'd be happy with that.
I mean, we'll get to see for Spa again. We'll get to see how it is at the end of this month for the 24-hour race. Because last year was where that Lamborghini's engine got ripped out and Norris's spin.
Yeah.
So we'll get to see if the changes to a Rouge in all the other corners has improved it to be safer.
Because the top of Radion has been completely reprofiled with the runoff, hasn't it?
Yeah, been widened.
Yeah. And Perez had I think it was Perez had a sketchy crash up there, or nearly had a sketchy crash. Anyway, that's where we lost Hubert a few years ago as well.
Yeah. Lando had a massive shunt there, quali, last year.
He did, yeah. Alright, two qualifying. Who's getting pole? Any thoughts, gents?
I'm going to throw a shoe out the box and say Checo.
Ooh. Daring. I mean, I'll be honest, I want Leclerc. Because I just want the championship to carry on. And yeah, I mean, I can't imagine Sainz is going to be pushing too hard in here. But if
no, I think he will give Leclerc slipstream.
Ooh, thinking. Very good thinking.
Could be. That could be.
But I don't think we can't really discount Verstappen, though, can we?
Yeah. I mean, just the Ferraris have been so fast this weekend as well. They're always... not really sure. I want to say Max or Leclerc, but I'm not sure which one to pick.
Well, the commentators were saying that Max wasn't seeming fully on pace this weekend. However, it's Max.
Yeah, you can.
I did read something the other day. It's like you can hate Max as much as you want, but then you've got to realise this. A lot of the time, it's the fans, not Max, that are the problem. And I sat there and thought about it for a while. Do you know what? You're right. He's actually quite a positive guy, Max. It's just the fans like to let off loads of fireworks everywhere.
It's just a bit like most of the drivers that are usually on the top places. Like, just have such big fan bases that sometimes we get these, like,
sometimes toxic fans.
yeah.
Yeah. Right, here we go. First blood goes to Perez.
Verstappen with the fastest second sector.
Leclerc with the fastest first sector. It's all going to come down to the final sector. It's Alonso P2, Tsunoda P3 currently.
Signs and pits.
Leclerc 31.2. Fastest first and last sector. Let's see Max.
So is Max 31.2. Okay, it's game on. 8 thousandths of a second between Leclerc and Verstappen.
Hamilton P4, okay.
1.2 behind Leclerc. That Merc is not looking happy around here.
Oh, Russell
1.2 as well. So
let's see Lando.
Ooh.
1.5, I think. 1.4.
Norris's McLaren looks like it's porpoising. I can hear what sounded like bouncing.
You can still see, like, there's such a performance gap between, like, Ferrari, Red Bulls, and the rest.
I think their price cap needs to come down a bit for the top teams.
We do get this every time there's a new reg change. There is a couple of teams that nail it.
Yeah.
Again, the old one was Brawn 2009, and a couple of other teams got double diffusers. Mercedes 2014 nailed it. These are the two teams that nailed the rule change. I'm just glad it's two teams that have done it, not one. I mean, I know a lot of Mercedes fans that are a little bit unhappy at the moment, we'll say. So, I think as a sport and a load of enthusiasts, we want to see Mercedes in there as well. But we'll see what they can do on fresh tyres, and hopefully they can get a bit closer. And I will say, historically speaking, this year, Mercedes has been much stronger in the Grand Prix for a lot of the races.
Yeah, they always seem to have somewhat decent, like, race pace. That's true. Like, ideally, like, just have as many teams as possible just fighting for those top positions.
And Roses, you raised an interesting point about the budget cap. I believe with inflation this year, team managers such as Horner have been lobbying for an increased budget. And I believe if I have granted a extension or a increase of about 3.5 million to all teams.
I believe for the top teams it should not be allowed. I think for the bottom teams, for like Haas, Aston Martin, it should be more for them.
That was something interesting. Do you guys reckon that it should be like we have on the Constructors' Championship? So the higher you place, the
Less.
like the most amount of money you get. Would you think that the higher you place on the Constructors' Championship, you'd have a smaller cap? I know it sounds a bit counterintuitive, but
You should, because you get probably nearly the same amount for winning the championship and the extra, like the races as well. You'll get money for winning, so it'd be nearly the same.
It's a tricky one with our sport, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a very tricky one. We shall see. What we got in front of us is right here, right now, and we can debate about the financials forever, I'm afraid. The only thing I will say is if it doesn't benefit Ferrari, Ferrari will veto it. And they have the power. They have the political power in F1.
They have Dominic Oliver as well, just saying. Former Ferrari employee.
Yeah. 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 It's there.
They have the champagne on the podium.
Yeah. Yeah. Conspiracy theories, here they come.
Oh, that's a new segment for the History Channel.
Right. Are we going to see Ferrari or Red Bull pole? And it's a short run to turn 1 tomorrow. So whoever starts on pole will, if they get a good start, will theoretically lead into the first corner.
Definitely, we'll be pointing their car towards that inside.
Yep. Are we going to see any upsets with Norris jumping the Mercs, Alonso being where he shouldn't as always, Magnussen, Tsunoda, just in terms of raw pace, not in terms of grid slots. Because obviously we've got signs of Magnussen basically going either 10 places back down or to the back of the grid.
Yeah. I mean, Alonso could always pull off something magical at the race start off the line.
He usually does.
So maybe could cause an upset to other teams. Actually, I think I'm actually going to go on board with him to watch final lap, probably. Yeah, it's going to be the final lap for everybody.
Okay, so
it is a long lap.
It is quite a long lap, yeah. So, well, Sainz isn't giving Leclerc a tow around the track, so there's that theory going, I'm afraid. Ferrari strategy group missing a trick again.
Well, I think they want to try and get Sainz as high up so he doesn't.
Could have still given him a tow. Could have still given him a tow on a different lap, and then done his lap afterwards. But hey,
Leclerc's purple.
Yeah, when Leclerc needs to have at least 2 purple sectors just to stay ahead of Max, who's slow in the first sector. But is he holding back in the first sector to make sure he's got the tyres for the third sector? Oh, here we go. Ferrari are doing it. There you go.
Yeah, here is Carlos again, just doing some slipstream.
Alright.
Perfect. Like they did last time.
Give Roses a cookie. Called that one.
Oh, Verstappen is 1/10.
Right, okay. So they've completely sacrificed Sainz.
Alonso P6.
Well, Leclerc comes across the line. Where's he going to end up in relation to Max?
30 maybe.
Yeah,
31.
30.8. Cracking.
Wow.
Right, where's Max?
Yeah, he's not improving.
No.
He won't improve.
Ooh. Right, Russell. No, Hamilton. Stop changing your helmet colours, boy. Keep looking for purple. So, right, Hamilton.
Leclerc didn't even need to go out, I think, because where he did a, what was it, 30.9?
Yep. Oh no, he was 8 thousandths ahead of Max. Max didn't improve.
Lando P5.
Ooh. Russell didn't have a good lap at all, did he?
Yeah, I don't think he improved on this last attempt. Or he didn't improve much, at least. Wow.
Ooh, I'm a little bit disappointed in the Merc's pace, but still top 6.
Yeah, top 6 is good for them.
Danny's going to be looking at Norris's position with envy.
Yeah, I think Norris will need to make a jump to a different team if he wants a chance of a world title if he wants one.
It is a little bit tricky for McLaren are developing their own site. They're building a new wind tunnel and all that sort of thing, which should have been up running this year, but because of the pandemic, it wasn't. So McLaren, you just have to see, do you have faith in them building their way out of the problem they got? That's the problem with that.
Yeah.
And going back to the budget, it's the point I've raised before. I would personally, because obviously they've been given this budget increase for this year, I would completely discount things like logistics in terms of the budget. Just have the budget cover car cost and development, including personnel who are manufacturing the car, and throw out engine costs as well. Just the sheer fact they are balancing where they put a new engine in their car if it might or might not blow up because of cost. I mean, I do think there should be the limits of parts. That's fine, and get penalties. Fine, but discount a lot more from the actual budget and make that a strict, say a strict $120 million to develop the car.
I was gonna say as well, like, since you've mentioned it, like the parts limits, do you reckon that it should be adjusted considering how long the seasons are becoming? Like, going to have 22 races this season.
Yeah, I
do you
it's
think
too
that
strict.
the parts cap should be adjusted?
Yeah, I think the parts limits are a bit too strict. Not by much, but you know, they're a bit too aggressive. That's my own personal opinion.
It's just getting to a point on which like teams are going to have to replace parts, but they just know that they're going to get penalties.
Yeah.
And it's not like they could do much to avoid that, really.
Yeah, with how the regulations are on the parts, they need basically a 100% reliability record to get through the year without any penalties.
Exactly.
It's a bit. I think it's just too aggressive. That's just me. So okay.
As we can see.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, because we are already seeing teams like Ferrari just getting like grid penalties already halfway through the season because they've already exceeded the amount of components that are allowed. It's a bit insane.
Yeah, exactly that. Well, Ferrari pole, Red Bull 2 and 3. Could be a good race tomorrow.
Could be. Let's hope so.
Here's a question for the pair of you. Who do you guys think are the top 5 actual raw talents in the field at the moment? Who do you guys feel?
I'll let Roses go first.
Checo. Leclerc. Russell, if the car was good. What else? Verstappen. And I'm going to say the 5th one's hard. I really don't know. Magnussen.
Ooh, interesting.
It's interesting.
Before you go, Pedro, hello to Stephen who's in the chat. Did I fall asleep and miss the whole quali? Yes. Do I care? Yes. Well, we got a Ferrari pole and Red Bull 2-3. So that's good. What do you feel, Pedro? Top 5 talents in the field at the moment.
So I'd say Max, Leclerc, Alonso. I don't know, like, especially recently, could maybe argue that Lando could be on that list as well. Who am I missing? I'm missing someone.
Verstappen?
Maybe, no, I mentioned, and I think it was the first one.
Oh, you did, yes.
So let me just recap then. So Max, Leclerc, Alonso. I could say, oh, it's a bit tricky because, you know, like I think Russell and Hamilton could be on that list, but I think Checo could also be there too.
Interesting.
And let me say, like, to a lesser extent, I do agree with Roses, like choosing Magnussen as well. I think he's really been an underrated driver. Just never really had the, like, just good, maybe the best machinery probably to showcase his abilities. I mean, we do know that he was like involved in a few incidents and all that, just really just being way too aggressive sometimes.
Yeah.
He still has a few things that he needs to polish, but I do feel like he's a really quick driver on his day
Just needs to
as well.
calm down a bit.
Yeah.
I get you. For me, I'm a little, I want to say a little bit more clear cut on this, but I just want to say Max and Leclerc, I think this year have been in a league of their own virtually.
Yeah.
Hamilton and Russell, I think they cannot not be mentioned. I mean, Hamilton just because of his outright performance, and then it's that fifth one, isn't it? Lando has been doing great this year, more or less, but he does seem to be a little bit hot and cold sometimes. Alonso's, he is doing a cracking job, but Bottas is doing fairly well.
That's true, actually. When you even consider Valtteri.
Yeah, and that's the problem. You sort of just understate, sort of that Finnish thing. It just understatedly slips under the radar.
Yeah.
And then there he is, there or thereabouts. But I wouldn't. Perez to me is very. He's there or thereabouts. I mean, in every aspect of his driving, but I couldn't put him in the top 5. For me, it is. If you put him in the car against, say, Lando, I think Lando would win.
Yeah, maybe say that as well.
Don't. Yeah, I'll have to stick with Norris on that one. I think. I would have said Gasly at this time last year.
True.
But he has had such a poor. Poor is probably a bit aggressive, but underwhelming year so far.
Yeah, I'd say so too.
Still. Well, there we go for qualifying then. Okay, Stephen says... What's it, 3? Stephen says it'll be a procession tomorrow amongst those 3 unless something chaotic happens during lap 1. Ooh. Possible. And we did see Max last year miss turn 1 almost entirely. So we'll see. And Stephen says he thinks he's worked out what Perez's issue is. Is it the fact he's driving a car which is made for Max?
I've actually seen something the other day, like started comparing Max's and Checo's performance, and the time gap between those two in qualifying has been increasing.
That's it.
So I think Checo has been like getting slower.
Proportionally not as close.
Max. Yeah.
Yeah. I hear you. Well, we'll see. In terms of stages of career, Perez is in his middle-aged part of the career. heading towards the end. I mean, he's nowhere near the end, but he's heading towards it. Because Max is still more than young enough to be considered at the start of his career. So
true.
yeah,
It's crazy, like to think that Max has already been on F1 for like 7 years now.
Yep.
Maybe. And he's still so young.
Yeah, and past F1 champions like Damon Hill didn't start until the early 30s.
Yeah.
Mad, isn't it?
Yeah, we can go as far as I think, like, as well, like, from recent examples on the grid, like, Hamilton only got to the grid when he was 22, I think.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, we've had some people like Vettel who started when they were 18, 19, but Max beat them by an entire year and such. So, yeah, I mean, that's just how F1 went in those couple of years around 2016, 17, 18, if not a little bit previous. That's fair. Stephen says, Perez, super consistent but doesn't have the killer instinct that Max, Lewis and Charles have demonstrated. I will agree with that, with the exception of Lewis's killer instinct seems to disappear around Max. And he lets Max push him off the track all the time. It's just a bit weird. It's just those two can't race close together. Every time we see Max and Lewis on track together, they collide.
True.
But Max and Charles, who have literally grown up together on the racetracks, have raced together for many, many years. And aside from Austria in about 2019, they've had very little contact with each other.
Yeah, they do seem to have a lot more respect for each other.
Exactly.
And as you've said before, like, I think that even before Charles got, like, finally a good car to showcase his talents, I did think that Max and him were on a different league, like, in terms of their raw talents. And it's completely showing that to be the case now, this season. Hopefully it's a rivalry, like one of those healthy but good, like, rivalries for years to come.
We can hope. Actually, we can hope for a little bit of drama as well, can't we? Maybe not like Silverstone, off at, what was it, Cops or Stowe? It was Cops, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we always get Cops and Stowe mixed up. And maybe not like that, or with Max trying to make the Red Bull with a Mercedes at Monza. So hopefully no more like that. We'll see. Okay, so alright, qualifying wise, any particular shocks for you gents in this one? I mean, my own personal one, we lost Mick in Q1 thanks to a track limit, which was probably that big. So track limits again. Oh, there's Shona Lacey. Sorry. So track limits again in Formula 1 is going to be a discussion. And it'll probably be worse come tomorrow, but any particular shocks for you gents?
Norris
P5.
being in a Mercedes sandwich. Normally he's just sat behind him, but he somehow squeezed it.
He did. The cracking from Norris. Yeah, that's fair. Pedro?
Other than that, no.
Anything else from you, Roses, on that topic?
Yeah.
Not really. That's just the only surprise.
It's fair. Pedro?
I'd probably agree with Lando being, like, that far up the grid. Even though he's proven, like, they can really extract the most out of the car.
Yeah.
I could probably say disappointing a bit from Gasly.
Yeah.
And I don't really... I think the rest has been pretty straightforward, really.
Yeah. I mean, top four, fairly obvious. Just in different order.
Yeah.
Or top three, fairly obvious. With Sainz being penalised down the grid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's fairly non-eventful, what we kind of expected kind of qualifying. But tomorrow is going to be the interesting one. Are the tyres going to hang on? Is it going to be a 2 or a 3 stop strategy?
Yeah.
We'll see. Okay. Well, with that in mind, any final thoughts before we leave the podcast for today?
Nope.
Not really too much to discuss on this one, is there?
Not regarding the
Not
race.
really.
Yeah. Okay, so potential good race tomorrow. This is hope we have a good one.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. Like, the races have been a bit uneventful. I mean, apart from... what I mean is, like, sometimes we don't see that much action on track, but I hope that with this year's cars, we can have a bit of a better race in that sense.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It was like close racing and all that.
Yeah, I hope so too. Right, well, with that in mind, we'll send a raid to Lilac Games. It's Lee.
Okay, sounds good.
Playing Assassin's Creed Black Flag. There's absolutely no one on my friends list doing any racing at all. So, we're going to the only friend that I've got online. So, with that in mind, I'm going to say thank you to Pedro and to Roses for being part of the podcast. It's been good fun. Enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Always a
Thank you
pleasure.
for having me.
Anytime, gents. And with that, I'm going to say thank you very much and catch you guys on next one. And everyone who's joined in for the qualifying watch along, thank you as always. So,
Indeed.
with that, catch you later.